thousands of years ago, the ancient Egyptians were able to create the greatest buildings ever conceived by mankind, by a people who had not yet even invented the wheel. Their staggering accomplishments mystify us to this day and leaves us with this question: how did they do it? But a better question might be, who did it and what for? For it is this question that truly complicates the already mystifying enigma of the Great Pyramid. Modern-day archaeologists attribute the construction of the Great Pyramid to the Pharaoh of Khufu, and they claim the Great Pyramid is nothing more than a place to keep the mummified remains of Khufu after he dies. This is what mainstream academia believes, despite the fact that all evidence is purely circumstantial and highly suspect. For nobody will understand the answer if you're asking the wrong questions. First, let's look at the evidence Egyptologists used to link Khufu and the Great Pyramid, and then let's take a look at the man who made the discovery. Colonel Richard Howard Vyse was a British soldier and a member of the Parliament, and eventually an Egyptologist. He and his partners John Perrin and Giovanni Battista Caviglia used a technique called gunpowder archaeology. They used homemade bombs to blast their way through the pyramids, and subsequently discovering more chambers hidden above the king's chamber. This is where our story becomes interesting. As Colonel Vyse and the others make their way into the first chamber, the dreams of making a big discovery are abruptly crushed when they realize there is nothing in the chamber. Caviglia, accepting the fact that any other undiscovered chambers would also not contain any treasures or discoveries to be decided, it would be in the best interest not to damage the pyramid anymore. Vyse, on the other hand, had plans of his own. He ordered letters to people funding their dig and had them order Caviglia to leave Egypt and all his findings behind. Colonel Vyse spent the next 3.5 months blasting their way to the upper chambers. And unlike the first chamber they discovered, these chambers had hieroglyphs written in the markings from a form of heretic script, and even a royal containing the name of the pharaoh Khufu. Finally, solving the mystery of who built the pyramid, this is the basis for all Egyptologists today, accepting all of Vyse's discovery as fact. So now it's up to us to ask those questions and see if their answers still make sense. To begin, there are revealing chambers above the king's chamber. However, the first chamber contains no inscriptions anywhere, just like the rest of the pyramid. Upon first sight, it does appear that there is a royal cartouche containing the name of Khufu. However, upon closer examination, there is a number of things wrong with this discovery. The first and most obvious is the flaw of the incorrect spelling of Khufu. Next, the fact that whoever wrote the inscription didn't give themselves enough room to complete it, if these marks were made by the quarry by the stone workers. All of that on top of the fact that these inscriptions were painted and not chiseled in. Now it's true that the work gangs would mark the stones with personalized markings representing their gang and proving they had completed their work. But the few examples that have survived are all on limestone or baked mud bricks. There is not a single other example of this. The ancient Egyptians never painted on granite. The stone was special to the Egyptians and was only used for specific reasons. Now let's look at the man behind the discovery. Colonel Vyse was a member of Parliament before coming to Egypt. Vyse was elected to Parliament for Beverley in Yorkshire. His elections were frequently contested. In 1807, 2 months after election of Philip Staple, the losing candidate petitioned Parliament accusing Vyse, along with the other winning candidate John Wharton, of bribery and corruption during the election campaign. The selected committee to which the petition was referred declined to void the result of the election in Staples' favor. Some 16 years after Vice's death, evidence surfaced that most of the voters had been paid. Payments made after an election were not deemed bribery under the 1729 Bribery Act. However, just because he would cheat and steal in politics doesn't prove he would fake his findings in Egypt, but it does give you an idea of his character. Now let us return to the pyramids. July 28, 1837, Colonel Vice makes another amazing discovery. Only this time, it's the Pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest of the three pyramids. In the upper antechamber, Colonel Vice claimed to have found the remains of a wooden arthropod coffin inscribed with Menkaure's name and containing human bones. This is now considered to be a substitute coffin for the site period. Radiocarbon dating the bones determined them to be less than 2,000 years old. Deeper into the pyramid, Vice came upon a basalt sarcophagus, which contained the bones of a young woman supposedly. Unfortunately, the sarcophagus now lies at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, having sunk in a ship when it was being transported. What's interesting to note is the artist's rendering of the sarcophagus. The drawing does not match the style of the sarcophagus from the 4th Dynasty old sarcophagus found in Abu Rash, a site Colonel Vice previously worked at. There appears to be a common theme here, and it continued all the way to the modern-day Egyptologists, who love to claim they have all the answers, with evidence to back them up, until someone starts asking the right questions. For example, in the year 1820 AD, the Caliphate Al-Mamun broke into the Great Pyramid, creating the entrance we use today to enter the Great Pyramid. But when they did break in, they discovered it was completely empty. No gold, no writings, no mummy, nothing. How do Egyptologists explain this? Simple. They say the pyramid was broken into before that and robbed. Now let us ask another question. Why was the pyramid completely sealed when Al-Mamun's army broke into it, which took over a year and a half? What tomb raider breaks into a tomb, steals all the gold, and the mummy for some reason then seals it back up in a manner that truly defies the laws of physics? Where are the magical inscriptions ensuring the king's safe passage into heaven? The two shafts leading from the king's chamber were at first thought to be air shafts, which turned out to be wrong. Then they claimed that the shafts must have been used in the construction process of the king's chamber, until they discovered the shafts are not straight lines, but in fact have a dog's leg shape. And now they claim that the shafts are a way for the pharaoh's soul to travel to the stars. Well, if that's true, then what was the use of the so-called solar boats buried next to the Great Pyramid, which claimed that was used to transport the pharaoh's soul to the stars? There are only a few items connected to Khufu, a tiny 3-inch statue, and the Great Pyramid. But there's one curious item connected to Khufu. It's the only written account directly connected to Khufu during the time of his reign. And this is what it says. A townsman named Didi apparently has the power to reattach a severed head unto an animal, to tame wild lions, and knows the number of the secret rooms in the shrine of Thoth. Khufu, intrigued, sends his son to invite the wise man to the court, and upon Didi's arrival, he orders a goose and a bull beheaded. Didi reattaches the heads. Khufu then questions him on his knowledge on the shrine of Thoth. Didi answers that he does not know the number of the rooms, but he knows where they are. When Khufu asks for the wheres and hows, Didi answers that he's not the one who can give Khufu access, but the first of the 3 kings in the womb of a woman, a fascinating tale of magicians at Khufu's court. Why was Khufu wanting to know how many rooms were inside of it? What kind of shrine is so big that it contains many rooms and is completely sealed up, preventing anyone from being able to count them? And Thoth, being of God's wisdom and knowledge, science and justice, who said to collect knowledge of all mankind. I ask you, what kind of shrine could represent him and all the knowledge of science, mathematics, and physics of the human race in a single building? If Khufu really did exist, where is his body? It was not found in the tomb, no sarcophagus ever found, and the evidence of the writing on the wall of Khufu, in my opinion, doesn't prove anything. Was Richard Howard Weiss behind some kind of conspiracy, a story, to fool the history books as we know it today? Thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase Moon, Blake Cousins. Keep your eyes in the skies. We're not alone. We'll see you again next time.